All right, here's what we're going over today. A few minutes late, but thank you. And again, this is being recorded and will be available for you and your employees towards the end of the week. We're going to go over the new 4473. Again, the big note here, required by February 1st. I think I said that 100 times this weekend. February 1st. Why are you calling me today? The ATF told us it was February 1st implementation and required use.
Can you say it one more time, JB? When is the new 4473 due to be used?
I don't know. Let me look it up, John. I'm not sure. February 1st. All right.
February 1.
February 1st. All right. We're going to go over state and federal law updates, just a couple of those. We're going to give you inspection updates and some hearing information from JC. We're going to go over the new ruling that's proposed. 2022 R17 is proposed. We've been getting a lot of calls about it. We don't spend a lot of time on it and telling you about it until it's finalized, if approved. So let's just hold on that. We'll talk about that in a minute. If you didn't hear, Biden's zero tolerance program now has 9 deadly sins. And we'll bring those to you in about 20 minutes here. 9 deadly sins based on hearing activity, ATF hearing revocation activity JC's been experiencing, sitting through and arguing with the attorneys about. So, and then we'll get to our famous Ask Us Anything rapid fire session, so stay tuned. So yes, in case you didn't know, we've been waiting for it. We knew it was coming. We wanted it to come. We needed a better 4473. And now that it's out and we've been told about it, we can't believe the way it was presented. We never thought, and we're talking on behalf of ourselves here. We're not representing anyone else on this call, except maybe you guys. We never thought the ATF would do again what they did in December and just drop this bomb on everyone and telling us we should be using a form, which is a federal legal document, as soon as possible, immediately. But yes, that's what they want us to do. They want us to go and use a form that we don't understand, haven't received any training or instruction on, and oh, by the way, may not be totally accurate. So if you, like the rest of us, got the notice on Friday, it was all about this new 4473 and a couple of the reasons why they have to correct what they previously issued in December is because that was a big mistake. You've probably heard that story 10 times. And they finally tried to revise and update the form to be accurate, to align with the NICS Denial Notification Act, the Bipartisan Safer Community Act that got passed when Biden first came into office, and the ATF Final Rule 2021 05F, which all has to do with frame and receiver marking updates, okay? Those 3 pieces of legislation has caused the ATF to revise this 4473 to make it compliant to the law and make it legal, basically. But here's what we're going to tell you, okay? I don't know, we spent 20 hours on putting this presentation together, just trying to figure out what was up, what was down, what was right, what was wrong. And basically that note you got from the ATF on Friday is completely inaccurate, okay? We started to work on that and we realized, go out to the website. This is the link. Take a picture, do a screenshot, or just write it down. The ATF website with the updated ATF form for 4473, specifically for August 2023 revisions, is the most correct information you can look at now. But again, this isn't due until February. But if you're one of those folks who wants to get out ahead of it, we will have training available. We're going to do online training and send information out for all your employees to go through over the next month or 2. It doesn't, it's not going to be in January. It's going to be a little, in October and November. You can get your employees up to speed. And of course, we expect the ATF to have training as well and explanation and maybe take some questions, but we're happy to do it here. So just note that the ATF website above is much better and more accurate than a significant revisions memo that was broadcasted to everybody on Friday. That thing was just a complete bomb in my mind. It was referencing the 2020 version of the ATF and made no reference to the December 2022 version of the 4473, rather. It was abominable. So here we are, and we're going to go through what we think you need to know about the new form and any new requirements. Basically, it is the form you've been using since December, okay? not much has changed. Only a couple questions have moved around. But the good news is they've clarified some questions and they've expanded and included some instructions we've asked them for. So let's go through them. And again, take some notes if you need to, and we'll be sending a recorded link out to you at the end of the week. First, make sure you're always looking at this date on your 4473s. I'm not going to lie to you. I hit 3 inspections last week in a very beautiful part of the country. 2 out of the 3 went pretty good, and in one I had some ATF Form 4473s from 2020 being used through July of this year. What does that mean? That means the FFL was not paying attention to, first of all, these webinars, and wasn't online, and they don't watch his ATF emails, had no clue that the form had changed, heard something about it, but didn't dig into it. And I just hope that he doesn't get inspected for the next 12 to 18 months, because when they find those forms, they're going to cite each and every one of as an incomplete transfer or unauthorized use of a federal document. He was using old forms. So we have until February 1st, but please don't miss that start date, February 1st, 2024, use the new forms. All right, it's always there at the bottom. Make sure you check your dates. And while we're looking at this, it's not even on the calendar, but in that same FFL, unfortunately, I found 3310.4s, the multiple handgun reports being used dating back to 1998. How that happened, I have no clue. I actually took one for prosperity. I haven't seen one. I don't remember it from 1998, but he was submitting them, and it's uncanny that the ATF was not calling him back to notify him that there was a new form to be used. Again, I don't know how this is going to wash out in an inspection, but make sure you're always using the updated forms. Check that ATF website frequently. Go search it, and we'll tell you here. That's one of our jobs, is to tell you when forms get updated. But if you have any questions, go out and just Google those forms on the ATF website and make sure you're using the most current update and download it if you need it. All right, there's the date. What date is that, JC?
It's February 1st, 2024, Feb 1, 2024, 2/1/2024. I can't say it any differently.
All right. I may miss my wedding anniversary, but I'm not going to forget February 1st of 2024.
Friday, I kind of confused 2/1/24 with a lot of things yet on Friday.
All right. I will keep
when are taxes due? 2/1/24? What? I don't know.
There you go. And we'll keep you updated here. Don't worry, we will keep you updated. So, hey, we recommend you wait. We recommend you find out all you need to know about this form. Go through training sessions, educate your team, understand the changes, because you have to explain this to the customer. We're going to go through this now, but you're still going to scratch your head about some of the things the ATF did not do to make it easier for FFLs and the customers. And again, there'll be lots of training as we go along. We got 2 months ahead. And one of the questions we got all weekend, ready? Can I order the forms now? Well, according to the ATF and according to the memos that he sent out, your revised forms will be available through the ATF Distribution Center beginning February 1st of 2023. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
What?
Yes.
When? What? What?
All right.
Yesterday or like months ago? What?
So that was in the memo sent out on Friday. That's all I can say. Let's move ahead. And they were nice enough to let us know that the e-form 4473 also is not available yet, and it will be revised. The notification will be sent when ready for use. Okay, your government that work for you. Tax dollars go a long way.
There you go.
All right, so just clarification. Some of this may be on the form, but a lot of this is mentioned in the specific requirements or specific revisions memo that got sent out. So we're trying to clarify you what's right, what's wrong, and where it might show either on the form or in the instructions. We actually checked up until 6 a.m. this morning on any additional ATF website updates. They had web updates going all weekend. They were just revising sentences and words and numbers, and it was uncanny. But here we go. All right. So we all know about column 1, description of your firearm in section A. We all know that they're asking for the manufacturer and importer. Okay, that has been on there. But we want to highlight that it says and, A-N-D. If you leave an importer out, if it's manufactured overseas, you will get dinged on your next inspection. And, you know, you could have your buddy ATF IOI come in and maybe not ding you, but you never know who's coming in next. And they will ding you on every importer that's missing. So if you have firearms in stock, do your inventory, look at those firearms. Yeah, look at those firearms. Ding, don't get dinged. Make sure you are updating your A&D records for imported firearms if necessary. Okay. And then for privately made firearms, PMFs, or privately manufactured firearms, we recommend, first of all, you try not to bring those into your store, but if you have those in your location overnight for any reason at all, and they do not have a serial number on them, you must list them here, identify them as a PMF, and then go ahead and engrave or get that serial number on there. That's required to be on there at the time you go ahead and bring that firearm in-house. So, and again, if the importer manufacturer are different here in the 4473, if they're different, you have to list them both. If it's Glock Austria and Glock USA, you could just write Glock. If it's SIG Germany and SIG United States, you can just write SIG. But if it's Springfield Armory made by HS Product in Turkey, you have to write HS Product / Springfield Armory. All right, let's not get lazy and let's not get in trouble when the ATF comes up. All right, next slide here, we're going to talk about reside in the city limits. Yes, we all were challenged with this when it showed up back in December, and the ATF was nice enough to talk about it this time around. There's the box. The box hasn't changed. It's still there. And they were nice enough to only mention instructions relative to active military. They have no instructions at all regarding yes, no, or unknown. What does this really mean, or why is it there? We've explained before, this is all due to the NICS, the NICS organization notifying local law enforcement on felons attempting to purchase a gun that get denied. That's what this is all about. They have to notify the appropriate police agency, law enforcement agency. But those instructions aren't in here. The only instructions they mention is if the armed forces member must answer this question regarding where their current residence is, what the address is in line 10. So that's it. That's the instructions you'll see for this box. Next, we're going to go to question 21B. Okay, we're moving fast because these are the revisions and or changes that we know to exist today on this new form. We're not going through everything. But on 21B, that question that everyone was getting wrong, all the customers were answering with a yes instead of a no and crossing it out and trying to figure out what it really meant. Well, guess what? It was such an important question, they decided to remove it. So it's gone. Don't worry about it. Now, in the significant revisions memo you got, it talks all about this question. But over on the ATF revision website for the new 4473, it's non-existent. So that's why we wanted to clarify this for you. 21B is gone. 21C has moved up and taken its place. So again, watch that revisions website, not the significant revisions memo you got. All right, question 21C, as I just said, has moved up, and thankfully it's changed. It's been updated to remove the phrase or ammunition. Okay, it used to say, do you intend to sell or otherwise dispose of any firearm listed in this form in any continuation sheets or ammunition in furtherance of any felony, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we couldn't figure out where that came from back in December. We dug into it. We asked a lot of questions. I think somebody concluded that legally they couldn't ask that, and nor did is it controlled in the Gun Control Act, and Congress has not approved this to be part of the information gathering process. So that's it. 21B is gone, 21C moves up, and it's not asking about ammunition anymore. All right, we're going to move over to section C with the whole background check process. So yes, we had all these changes regarding transferees to under 21. All of those lines and spaces and boxes were added last time around. The good news is there's now instructions to go along with all of those boxes and requirements to explain the process that is basically all falling under the NICS Denial Act that was approved. NICS has to deal with all these delays, under 21s, extended delays, etc. So just look for the instructions there. They are included in case you still need training on all of that. But by now, I think all of you are well adapted to and adept in this area. I do want to mention here, there's been a lot of questions of recent on this issue where under 21 folks attempting to purchase and transfer long guns have been getting delayed, but then proceeded maybe even in the same day or the next day, and not even going to 3 days. The mandatory 3 days that we heard about, it's mandatory 3 days delay on under 21 or until they are proceeded. So the answer is yes. They NICS is getting better at doing these background checks, getting them done timely. Thank you, NICS. But it is not mandatory. You can transfer if you get a proceed on an under 21 transfer in a day or two. And then this extra up to 10 days. Remember, it's up to 10 days. It's not mandatory 10 days. If NICS decides that an under 21 person needs additional research and the 3 days does not cut it, they will notify you by way of NICS. They're not calling you anymore. They're not sending you emails. They're not picking up the phone. They are simply updating NICS to show an extended an extended Brady date release for folks under 21 purchasing long guns who need more time for research. So here's the I guess the bear trap here. If you don't check on a delay under 21, if you don't check that NICS update screen and look at that Brady date to see if it's been extended and you release early, you're going to get in big trouble. It's up to you on any delay, whether it be under 21 or over 21, before you release a NICS delay for a transfer. Always, always, always 100% of the time, check that NICS screen and make sure you're good to go. And it hasn't changed to a denial, and the Brady date hasn't been extended for anyone under 21. So we've had several of these, JC, right, over the last month or two, where we're in revocation hearings now.
Oh, absolutely. This is a big one. You know, when it comes to these changes and everything, and missing some of these changes and not paying attention to these forms, it can definitely come around to bite you.
Yep. All right, next. All right, on page 3 of their, again, significant revisions doc, it had a big error. It said the forms are going to be available April 1st. We saw that. Okay, what's the date, JC? When will forms be required to be used?
Required. Oh man, what was the date again? February 1st, 2024.
There we go.
Killing me.
Yeah. So don't pay attention to that significant revisions document. I know you got it. We got it. And just uncanny. All right. This is just reiterating that 21B, again, has been removed from the August 2023 revision. Your customers should not be confused. But if they came in last week to buy a gun and they come in next month to buy a gun, make sure they know that that form's been updated. And most of we have the Before You Begin guide. We will be updating the Before You Begin guide for all first-time gun buyers and get that out on our website. Look at me, I'm writing it down, Before You Begin, and we'll let you know when that's available. Hopefully we have that available when we push out this video to you next week. We'll put a link in there for you. All right. And then 21C, again, everything has been moved up. All of the questions, 21C through 21L, M, and N now have all been moved up, so you got to pay attention to that. And all prohibiting questions moved up one spot, and that ammunition phrase has been removed from what is now 21B, which was 21C. And I hope you're all following along closely and not getting confused like I was all weekend.
I'm having flashbacks to Sesame Street right now. A, B, C, D, what? So many changes.
I wish we can put them in order. All right. 20. Okay, guys, here's the big one. Let's hear a round of applause. Do we hear a round of applause someplace?
I think there's an emoji that gives us a hand clap. So I think that we should definitely have.
All right. Non-immigrant alien prohibition. This used to be 20. So your memo says this is 21N and 2. N1 and N2 have now been changed to 21M1 and M2. So again, don't refer to the memo, refer to the instructions. But here's the big issues. Very concerning. I don't know why they did this, but so they changed the number on the form. They made it a yes or no question. I'm sorry, it is a yes or no question, 21M1 and 21M2. First thing you'll notice is that it has been moved up to a proper place now within the prohibiting questions. We wish it was over on page 1 with the question 19 and 20 about being a citizen and all that, but it's not. They didn't listen to us on that suggestion because it made sense. They left it here. It's still a yes/no question, but they were nice enough to remove the instructions. Okay, so now we're back to where we were in 2020. If you guys have been around since then, in 2020, there was no instructions. This question just appeared. So but there are instructions over in the page 6, I believe, of the 4473 new instruction booklet. So if your customer ever gets that far and you direct them to read, they'll go back and find out that if they check no to 21M1, they will leave 21M2 blank. Let's hear it for old stuff working well. All right. So that's the way it used to be. Okay. Now we can predict a lot of customers are going to go ahead and check 21M2 with a no answer as well. And JC and I agreed this morning that a no answer is not wrong. So we will try to get that verification from the ATF in case your customers go ahead and just check no and no. We'll go ahead and see if that's okay. For now, just do your best to get customers not to answer that if they actually put a no answer in 21M1. And the same rule applies if they are an alien immigrant and they do have an exemption. They will check 21M1 and 21M2 with a yes indication. Okay. Well, that was all good news. Let me go back here for a minute. I want to bring your attention to 21N. Right here, it says, do you intend to sell or dispose of any firearm listed on the form any continuation sheet to any person described in questions 21B through L, or to a person described in 21M1 who does not fall within the immigration alien exemption? I believe this is a new question. Okay, I'm not going to pull the files. But anyway, this is added at this point in time. I believe this is part of 21B that was on the first page, but was removed. And now I want to say relocated. I think that's a term that the ATF uses. So this sounds like the question we had at 21B, but just realize it is here. This is a big issue. Make sure your customers are answering with a no. It is self-explanatory. Sounds pretty good. It will look like it's in the right place because they can look above, make sure they're not selling to or transferring to a prohibited person or intend to sell to a prohibited person. And I think they got this one right. So one thumbs up for ATF. All right. Here's a big one, guys. Going back to some of the laws that were changed in the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, on when a person certifies this was here since August, but it's really talking about a person engaged in the business of dealing with firearms, how they are, and if they're in the business to predominantly is the big word, earn a profit through the repetitive purchase and resale of firearms. There is instructions in this now, so you got to go back and read that, but it is talking to and leading to investigations of non-licensees buying a lot of guns, not for their own collection, but for their gun shows, the gun show booth, the flea market booth, etc., where they are in the business of predominantly earning money by selling guns. We have no definition of what predominantly really means, but we want you to qualify every transfer. If you have anything odd going on, make sure you challenge it and question it, and make sure you are not conspiring to put that person in business without a license. You are not conspiring to participate in straw purchases. Okay, if that person is buying guns for somebody other than themselves with the intention to engage predominantly to earn money, you can be accused of conspiring. We have, is it 3, JC, that we're dealing with? 3 or 4 now?
4.
4. In the last 2 months, this is bubbling up big time. Its ugly head is popping up where gun dealers are saying, I did my background check. Everything was good. I don't sell to straw purchases, and now I'm being investigated. And the ATF, as recently as Saturday, they're working weekends. I had a gun dealer call me. They got a trace from an investigator, not even in their home state. This was, I think, Kansas, and the investigator was up in Illinois, calling to ask for all 4473s relative to a customer that he has had in the store over the last 2 years. Many of you have gotten that call. Well, I could count probably 10 or a dozen in the last 2 months that I've gotten this call about that said, this is weird. The ATF, an investigator, not a tracing center person, a criminal investigator called me and wants all copies of 4473s relative to Mr. Smith. Is that legal? Can I do that? And the answer is yes. And that is why they are going after these people, because they can. And we just don't want you getting caught up in having to explain why you did not qualify the genuine interest and the genuine intent of those firearms for that customer. All right. Anything else on that, JC? That's a big one going on.
Yeah, that's a big one. No, that's pretty straightforward. You really need to make sure that, you're following the rules on this one.
Yeah. And don't lie for the other guy. Remember, guys, it's not on here, but don'tlie.org. Go get your straw purchase prevention programs. Go ahead and get those now. Order them from NSSF. Don'tlie.org. Order your kit, hang the posters, and get the education in place with your staff not to do this. Okay. Qualify every sale. All right. We're just going to talk about the first paragraph of the back on question 27 in the instructions. Please go back and read that. It talks all about this last question we're talking about with the person answering yes or no to all of the questions. The final questions at 21 and now, where it does ask about that buyer purchasing firearms for someone other than themselves and for some other reason, or to predominantly enter into the business without a license. So be careful, read the instructions. Go highlight that when you get it, and make sure your staff understands that. Remember, it's not about the money, guys. If you tell the ATF you sell guns to make money and run a business, that's half of it. Yeah, we understand that, and everything else you sell in the store. But it's to make sure we transfer firearms as a licensee to non-prohibited people. All right. Let's see. Next second paragraph and next background check has been updated, and this talks again to this whole issue. If you're selling guns for the money and you think it's okay simply because you got a pass on a background check from NICS, you really don't understand what the requirements of the Gun Control Act and the FFL requirements as a licensee really are. You need to qualify every sale. You need to know, you need to be able to testify that you did not in any way participate in the straw purchase or help that person traffic firearms or sell guns illegally. You don't want to be in that situation. We have people dealing with that right now, and it is a pain in the to try to explain. And what's the right limit? How many guns should I sell to a customer in the same year or the same month? We get that question all the time. And I think, JC, our best advice is make sure you know what the heck's going on. Make sure you question anything unusual. Somebody buying five 9mm Smith & Wessons, 5 SDV-9Es, 5 I'm picking on some guns here, but some more of the commodity guns. Why do you need more than 2 of the same gun? You've got to be asking that question. And why does somebody need 20 guns if you can't confirm they don't have a collection at home in their man cave?
We've brought this up so many times. Hey, look, if somebody's coming in buying 7 Glock 19, 9mm rather, 7mm, 9mm, you got to start asking questions like, hey, what's going on with these? And there could be legitimate purposes. We have a ton of security guard companies that have been purchasing multiple firearms for their business purposes. And unfortunately, it was unbeknownst to the licensee that they didn't get a perjury statement from the buyer. And in those cases, they've come to us and said, hey, we want an FFL. Can you help us with that? And those are legitimate purposes. But when an individual comes in and they're buying, and this is a great example because believe it or not, it happens quite a bit. They're buying 10, 12, 17 high point 9mm. It's like, okay, this is the cheapest gun on the market, and you're buying 19 of them. What you only have 2 hands, and it's a crap gun for the most part. It's like, well, it's the budget gun. What are you buying that for? We've had FFLs that have had 40 lower receivers show up that they bought off, gun broker or whatever. And should we transfer them? Absolutely not. You got to start asking some questions. So you really have to be careful with this and really understand you're a licensee. You're responsible to conduct lawful commerce in firearms. So you want to make sure that you're asking the appropriate questions. That's really important.
Yeah, and if you're not, or you've got the attitude, it's, that you're doing it according to the Constitution and all that fun stuff, well, good luck when the ATF comes knocking on your door. We're not going to be able to help you. All right, I had another issue, JC, but you were talking and I lost I might come back to me later. So
All right.
All right, so what do we think? All right, guys. Well, what do you think we think, right? You know what? We think, wait. Okay. Okay. All this, I know this was a lot of review, hopefully a lot of good information, fast and furious, but over the next 2 months, we will have significant amount of training that step by step for you and your employees to go through how to fill out the form and what's changed. So no rush. The forms aren't available. The software companies have to get their e-forms updated. Just wait, continue using the forms you have until you fully understand the updates and revisions.
Hey, JB, just one other note. Hey, make sure that you're reading that new 4473 front to back. I know it's boring. I know that it's tedious, it's monotonous to read it, but just make sure you and your staff are reading through it and understand all the nuances. And number one, definitely go out to the ATF's website, review the changes. They've posted the changes, what they are, what to expect. The National Shooting Sports Foundation will be coming out with some documents as well to help you. So make sure you're checking out their website. The whole team from the compliance consultant team is working on a document to help you all as FFLs to make sure you get it right the first time. So make sure you're checking out those two resources to review everything that's going on with this revision. It's a big deal in the sense that you got to make sure you're using the new form and everybody's answering the questions and giving their correct inputs, etc. But just make sure you're going out there reviewing that and having your staff review it as well.
Yeah, JC, great point. Every new employee, and now you guys with this new form, every staff member should take that 4473, the new one, when it's available, you can download it, it's 6-7 pages. Take a highlighter and highlight all the new things, whether it be the instructions or the questions in the prohibiting questions, because our section 21 area, just highlight it and let everybody make sure that you're all talking about it. Had a little staff meeting at night or Saturday night or Friday morning or something. Go have a meeting to review all these so everybody knows about the changes and that they're coming, and there'll be training down the road, but make sure everybody knows it's coming. And some of the instructions are good for the stuff that's on there now. So it does explain some of the things that weren't explained before. So, okay. And here we go. Just a couple quick state updates, guys. Colorado, if you got Colorado residents or your Colorado FFL starting October 1st, they now, like Florida, have the automatic 3-day mandatory delay on any firearm transfer. I think Illinois does a similar process with a couple little twists and turns in it. But Colorado, you get a background check. I'm sorry, you initiate the background check, and you have an automatic 3-day wait, period. There's no exceptions, no unusual, say, when did I buy the gun? When did I pay for the gun? Some of the other states do that. There's a 3-day wait from the time you submit the background check. And then there's only a couple exceptions. One is if it's an antique or a curio or relic firearm, and the other one is if it's an active duty member being deployed. So you got somebody from Colorado walking in your store. This is 3 days. Got any questions? Give us a ring. And we'll add this to the restricted states guide we have available for you guys. The other state was New York. Wonderful New York last week. It's causing havoc up and down all around the New York border. Every state, every town. I'm sorry, every town, every city. They changed from a NICS background check program to state police for everything. I think state police are doing handguns, and there's no assault guns allowed in New York, but they were doing handguns. Now state police does everything, including long guns. Oh yeah, and ammunition, by the way. So thank you, Governor Hochul up in New York. She's really going after the gun dealers and Second Amendment supporters in her state. I guess she doesn't want that vote, but it's crazy. It's bad. The website is up and running, but everybody's getting delayed from what we hear. We can't really tell you anything if you're in New York State FFL other than call the state police, contact them. I know they're not returning calls or answering the phone. Leave a message. Hopefully this helps itself out over the next, 2, 3, 4 weeks. But this ammunition purchase is a requirement on each and every sale. It's just crazy. So good luck with that. And we'll try to touch base with some of you. I'll be actually up in New York in 3 weeks. Maybe I'll have some feedback before our next call. All right. ATF stats real quick. Let's see. Wow. So August had the highest number of inspections in any month in any year we've ever looked at, right, JC?
That is
983.
correct. Yep. 100%.
I'm getting calls, and JC, you're getting calls too, of IOIs plowing through the paper, right? Basically, right? Not even looking.
Plowing through.
Plowing through.
Thousands of transactions, and the inspection is done in a couple of days. It's interesting.
Yeah, we had one last week. It took 1 day to count. He had 3,044.73s last year, or the last 12 months. And the inspector said he'd be done in 2 days. And we're like, okay, we hope so. But we're yet to see what happens here, or what comes of it, and why they're pushing it through so fast. We can only figure out they're looking for numbers and statistics to report for the end of year, which ends this month. September is the end of the fiscal year for the ATF. So they are out, right? I have three inspections, JC. What do you got going?
Oh yeah. How many do I have right now? I think I have 4.
Yeah.
I have at least 4. You have 3. Yeah, I think we have about 7. Yep.
Yeah. That's just this week.
Yeah. Yep.
So they're out, they're plowing through, they're taking names, they're looking for violations, and they're moving fast. So be ready. Again, do an inventory if you haven't, and get the last 90, especially the last 90 days checked, and make sure those next numbers are correct. Let's see, we had 26 warnings issued. We have 19 revocations. Again, one of the highest months of the year. And these are revocations that have closed the process. JC, I think we had 5 closed last month. No, 5 attended.
Yeah, 5 attended last month. Yep. Yeah, we don't have responses on those yet.
Yeah. So JC's just running around going to these hearings all over the country. He's like a slingshot. He goes from gets on one plane, goes cross country to the next one. So on average, it's 2%. 2 out of every 100 inspections results in a violation. We don't want you to be one of those. Here's the inspections completed by office. Yeah, the same people, the same offices. Again, they have the majority of the IOI staffs. They're beefed up. Phoenix is on there for the first time in a while. They had 62 inspections. Again, 983 for the year, for the month rather. But this is concerning. The revocations that closed, again, these were closed revocations, not hearings that we're going to. Miami shut down 3 gun dealers. New Orleans shut down 3. Tampa and Washington each shut down 2. That's Washington State. And all those other cities there each had 1. Total of 19 businesses closed. And 4 of them have asked us to help them figure out what to do next. So, all right, JC.
Oh, the zero tolerance policy. Number 1, here's the deal. There were 5 deadly sins, and then there weren't. And then there were 7 deadly sins, and then there weren't. And now we have 9 deadly sins.
Oh boy.
And those 9 deadly sins are right there on your screen. And one of the things I want to tell you all, and our partners, our friends at ATF will tell you, they don't like referring to it as deadly sins. They've been told not to refer to it as that any longer. So if they shy away from saying deadly sins, you'll know why. All right. But the key here is you have to know your inspection history, because it's quintessential to whether or not you're facing a potential administrative action, whether it goes from a warning scenario all the way up to a revocation notice. So be real cognizant of that. You have to, and I have to reiterate this because I can't tell you how many times I talk to an FFL and they don't know their inspection history. Or, oh yeah, I got something. It was nothing but clerical errors. It's no big deal. Okay, well, I've got an FFL right now that sells upwards of tens of thousands of guns a year who didn't take this seriously. And then all of a sudden, bing, bang, boom, they got a notice of revocation and didn't understand how this happened to them. You have to remain aware of your inspection history. Now, 2 of the 9 deadly sins are no-brainers. Okay. Failing to respond to a trace request, that is your responsibility. You as an FFL are the custodian of records for the government for firearm transactions. That is your responsibility as a licensee. That's what you signed up for when you became an FFL. Second one is refusing to allow or permit the ATF to conduct an inspection. Don't do this. We've gotten several phone calls from ATF directly saying, hey, do you happen to represent this FFL? And we're like, yeah, why? Well, they're kind of pushing back on us doing an inspection because they're busy right now. I'll make a phone call and get it squared away. Just stand by. I'll call you right back. I don't mind doing that. I don't mind making that phone call, but let's not put you in that position. The ATF shows up, you've completed an application or a renewal, and you've told the ATF your operating hours, and you're open for business. You are actually dealing in firearms to non-licensees, to the consumer. You are eligible for inspection, period. The end. You're open for business. It doesn't matter if the responsible person is on site or not. You can be inspected, period. The end. You agreed to this when you became an FFL. So please don't do these 2 things. It makes life really, really difficult on you. And it makes it really hard for me to argue on your behalf. Okay. We've developed a very good relationship. And that's one of the things that JB and I tout. We're non-adversarial to the ATF. We're very cooperative. We work with them. We train with them. We do a whole bunch with them. And they know they can call us and say, hey, if this is one of yours, can we do something about this? Absolutely, we can. And they know that we're not a game player. They know that we are going to get the right thing done at the right time. Okay. So please make sure you're not doing these things. But here are your key 9 deadly sins. And you need to make sure that you are not going down a path where you're, creating these scenarios and you've already been called out for them and you're repeating them after the fact, because that could land you in administrative action. The way the ATF looks at it is quite simple. You have been told not to do it and you did it again anyway. So in their minds, that's willful. So you need to be very careful. Okay. Remember, repeat violations are considered and construed as willful. So you have to be very cognizant of that. Okay. That's really key to your success as an FFL.
You just want to call attention to these last 4 and kind of expand on them, because this list is just a list, but hey, what is number 6? And these last 4, now you're not going to find these out on the ATF website. They're not posting them. These are posted based on our experience and discussions with ATF, based on the hearing outcomes and violations JC for the most part is dealing with, right?
So failure to account for firearms, right? That's your inventory. Not knowing what you have in inventory and knowing what's missing, whether it's lost or stolen. If you've accounted for it, in other words, if you've acquired that firearm and come inspection time, you can't account for that firearm. Well, guess what? That's interest to public safety. You have a firearm that's missing and the ATF is saying, where's the firearm? And you're saying, I don't know. Well, guess what? That influences public safety in a negative light. So you need to make sure you're accounting for all your firearms. We tell you to do quarterly inventories. Month 1, handguns, month 2, long guns or rifles rather, month 3, shotguns. And if you have NFA, tie NFA into month 3, because they typically you have less shotguns than you do rifles. So you want to make sure you're accounting for everything. And NFA firearms specifically, I mean, those are registered firearms. You're supposed to account for those no matter what. So failure to verify and document buyer eligibility. What does that mean? Really simple. Is the person over 21 if they're buying a handgun? Is the person over 18 if they're buying a long gun? Is it an out-of-state transfer? If it is it legal in both states? Things like that. Is their ID expired? If you're accepting a CCW for an in-state firearm transfer, for an in-state resident firearm transfer, is it expired? Was there an extension issued for it? Or have you accepted an extension as a exemption to a background check, because if you did, you're wrong. Okay. So you want to make sure you're evaluating buyer eligibility and making sure 100% on that. Failure to maintain records needed for successful firearms tracing. That's your acquisition, your disposition, your ATF form 4473, continuation sheets, your multiple sale forms, all of those attributes of the transaction that's required. And then failure to report multiple sales of handguns. This one comes up a lot with FFLs that have been actually called out for this in previous inspections. It's really important that you're submitting your multiple sale of handgun and long gun, right? Handgun and rifle. Remember, border states, that's Texas, California, New Mexico, Arizona. You as an FFL type 1 or type 2 have a responsibility to submit your multiple sale of rifle form in those states. And there's specific criteria. And if you look at page 2 on the 3310.12 for you Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California FFLs, pay attention to what your responsibilities are. Okay. But report of multiple sales are required by the end of the business day that the multiple sale occurs on. You have to make sure you're getting those in a timely manner. We've had multiple FFLs that have come up for administrative action up to including revocation, where that multiple sale of handguns has come around to bite them. So make sure you're paying attention to that. Make sure you have a program in place to capture those multiple sales so you know that you need to report them. Most of you that are on some sort of electronic solution like a fastbound, etc., they have inner workings that will notify you. You just, as the FFL or the employee of the FFL, have to make sure you get those in.
And the most important part about this, guys, again, I stumbled over it in 2 out of my 3 visits last week. They had no proof of submittal on these forms. So yes, they were done. Yes, they were attached to the 4473s, but there was no fax confirmation. There was no email trail. They didn't email it and copy themselves and drop it into a folder, because the ATF will show up and say you never sent it in and you're guilty until proven innocent. So make sure you have proof that you submit these, as well as trace requests. So, all right.
Yep.
We bring these up again because we're dealing with the notice revocations on these issues. All right. Quick update. You probably heard about this. We've got a lot of calls on it. Came out a couple of weeks ago. But ATF ruling 2022 R-17, which is proposed. It's simply proposed, not firmed up yet, and not passed and not approved.
Proposed.
It talks about a lot about the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act issue of folks, if you're a dealer or not a dealer selling guns, plain and simple. So this ruling is going to hammer home all of the language in the Gun Control Act that exists, the 4473, the instructions. It's going to talk about definitions and transactional explanations to eliminate and go after and prosecute people, again, who are buying guns for the purpose of predominantly engaging in the business at yard sales, flea markets, and gun shows without a license.
Yep.
Now, we should all be happy about that. Okay. These guys aren't going to be able to be in the next booth at the gun show, charging a $200 premium on a Taurus because they're selling to people without a license and otherwise prohibited. I'm all for this action, but it connects to the gun dealer who may be selling somebody 5 Tauruses or 5 High Points or 5 Smith & Wesson or 5 Skies, and I'm picking on guns here, just commodity guns, that are going to hence show up on a table someplace. And if that gets connected to you, you're going to have a lot of explaining to do. So go out and look at this rule. It's in the Federal Register. It's open for comments until December 7th. Of course, organizations like the NSSF and the Second Amendment Foundation and others are out there doing their due diligence and replying and making comments and suggestions. But as a FFL community, you should do so too. Make sure you know what's going on out there.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate something because this came up, in the last week or so when this was actually published. Engaged in the business. You as an FFL, you're already engaged in the business. It's nothing new to you. You're already a licensed federal firearms dealer. So you are not becoming engaged in the business. Now, here's what I would tell you is anyone you know that's selling firearms at a gun show or whatever that's non-licensed, please by all means help them get through the FFL licensing process. Absolutely, they should go apply for an FFL, because the more people that apply for FFLs, the more qualifying inspections that have to be completed, and the less firearms compliance inspections that need to be that can be completed. So by all means, inspire them to go get their FFL. Become an FFL, please. I want to tie up IOIs with as many qualifying inspections as we can.
That's great. I love that. I love that. I love that strategy, JC.
Yeah, why not? Come
Exactly.
on, get your FFL. Come
Yeah.
on, sell guns by all means. Spend the $200, get your Type 1.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's hear it for these. Let's big round of applause. Woo-hoo.
Yeah,
All right.
there we go.
Donna, we finally got you on the board. I know it was back in July. Donna up in Michigan had scored an ATF order with no problems, no citable violations. I mean, minors at best. Same for Sam over in California, Jeremy in Ohio, very good job. Gail down in Alabama, Phil over up in Minnesota. And those are great. They were all ATF inspections. All right. But sadly, JC and I went out and we had 37 last month. And guess what? 37, not one of you guys passed with a revocable citable violation, meaning every one of you, as you know, had at least one of those boo-boos that can land you in the hot house with a notice of revocation. So make sure you guys are using a compliance checklist, checking it twice, using it as a weekly reminder to everything you should be doing to make sure you're compliant before the ATF shows up. And then, hey, you know what we do. You can get us out to your place of business through the NSSF and their Premium Retail Program. If you don't have any past adverse action, no warnings, no prior notice of revocation issues, hey, check into it. Give us a call, find out more, get this whole on-site full-day ATF mock audit. That's the big one. We come out, tell you how you're doing, what you need to brush up on, what you need to correct, what you need to get better at. And then make sure you're doing everything right. And then a $25,000 of legal defense fund protection that helps you if you do get in trouble and you need a lawyer or us or somebody helping you through that adverse action process. You get access to the website. Many of the member benefits. Give us a call or email us and we'll send you that list and help you figure out how to get signed up there for the National Shooting Sports Foundation.
And y'all, please understand something when it comes to, if you want an attorney, by all means, yes, absolutely talk to an attorney. The vast majority of the time when you talk to an attorney, that first call typically is free just to get an understanding of where things need to go and what direction and potential costs, etc. But please reach out to us and talk to us first so we can point you in the direction of the proper attorney. We've had too many situations now where the attorney has either been a business attorney or a 2A focused attorney, and that's all well and good, but they may not understand the intricacies of federal regulations and the ATF and all that is, the industry operations investigator and the firearms compliance inspection, etc. And we have to spend time training them on that. And a lot of times what happens, especially with me running around the country doing these, is that attorney is sitting second chair to us because they don't understand those intricacies. So if you need an attorney, you want an attorney, reach out to us. We'll put you in contact with the group of attorneys that we work with that are actual industry attorneys. So please remember that.
All right. Just to get to the last slide here, then we'll do FAQs. Get it right the first time. Remember, everything we do is all about the trace. Remember, it's all about record keeping and compliance. So review every ATF twice before you let that gun out the door, 3 times before you file it, if not more. ENICs and state background checks, make sure you have documentation you completed those correctly and timely, and you have the right answer and proof that you delivered that gun under the right disposition. Make sure, like JC says, you know your inspection history. Make sure if you have any adverse action in the past, and I don't care if it's 1 visit or 10 visits ago from the ATF, they can pull that up from, as we know, 1998 and say, you did this again 20 years later, you made the same mistake, therefore we're going to have a repeat violation and put you in the notice of revocation funnel. So know your adverse action, conduct your inventories, we beat that one to death, complete your A&D entries daily. Again, they're looking at acquisitions and disposition entries when they come in to do your inventory, and they're holding you accountable for not having those done completely and timely according to their record, and that's leading to a revocation now. Prevent your straw purchases, complete your multiple firearm transfers, and respond to those traces. And most importantly, call us if you need help.
Yep.
And we are.
Ken over in Kansas just let me know they're being inspected.
Yeah, showed up today.
Yeah.
Now, guys, also out to our website, right at the bottom of our website, fflconsultants.com, hit that bonus button right way at the bottom. And right in there is a whole slew of tools and resources for you. And the most important one is how to prepare for your next ATF inspection. Get that downloaded and share it with your team. You ready for questions, JC?
Bring them on, brother. Bring them on.
All right, here we go.
Don't ask me about February 1st, 2024, though, because that's a button issue.
All right. If you didn't notice in the chat room, JC also provided all of the updated dates and revision dates for all of those forms we mentioned earlier. You can go out there and look for them. But here's from Thomas, says, I'm a class 1 FFL. I've built several ARs over the years. I've transferred these to me personally. Can I take these into my inventory as a PMF and sell if I want to?
PMF, I got to tell you, Thomas, I'm kind of concerned about this just because of the fact you're telling me you're type 1, but you're building ARs. What you really should have been doing is transferring them as a receiver to yourself and then building them as an individual rather than as a FFL, because it concerns me in the sense that you could essentially be considered manufacturing without a license. So we really need to diagnose this a little bit better. Here's the key. If you're manufacturing without a license, you can get a lot of trouble for that. There's a lot of nuances, excise tax, reporting, etc., that you need to be aware of. So let's dig into this one a little bit deeper. Reach out to us, and I'll kind of diagnose what's going on there. Typically, if you build or even purchase a firearm personally and then want to re-enter it into commerce, you need to own that firearm for a year per the ATF. That's their nuance to that. So we want to make sure you've owned them for at least a year without the intent of entering them into commerce. So reach out to us. Let's diagnose this a little bit further, see what's going on.
Yeah, well, let me clarify, JC. A person manufactured a firearm, that doesn't necessarily mean built firearm. Is it a ghost gun without a serial number drilled out?
Well, the nuances of manufacturing, even assembly is considered manufacturing. So, and the nuances of the regulation are, with the intent, to make a profit, right? Doing it in such a way and frequency that you're doing it with the intent to manufacture for profit. So you have to be really careful with that.
Yeah, and then some other issues, technical issues are: who bought the receivers?
Right.
Were they serialized first? Yeah.
Who marked them? Are they marked? Were they marked accordingly? As a type 1, you're not marking because you're a dealer in firearms, not a manufacturer in firearms. So there's some nuances there. I need to understand a little bit better about that situation.
Yeah, so Thomas, that's worth a phone call to JC when he's got some free time there. Hey, Adam, thanks a lot for letting us know that I think Adam and others said they're supposed to have the printed forms available for November 1st. Let's see if that happens.
Yeah.
I had some other calls today asking if they should put their orders in today. Yeah, sure, I'll put your orders in, but we're not sure how they're
the old version.
Yeah. If you put your order in today, you're going to get the old version. You're going to get what's on the shelf. So maybe you want to wait till after November 1st.
Right.
All right. And there's no different form number. It's the same form number. That's not a 5300.09, I think it is. It's not changing. It's just going to be replaced. All right. Okay, JC, you answered a lot of these. Please explain what a non-immigrant visa means.
So non-immigrant visa is somebody coming into the country under a student visa or a work visa, something of that nature, where they have no intention of making a residence in the United States or becoming naturalized citizens. They don't intend on becoming a permanent resident, anything like that. They are here strictly for work, school, etc. purposes, and then will be returning to their homeland, wherever that may be, and maintaining their residence in that country. So those are really, interesting scenarios that come up. You got to make sure that, number one, their I-94 is valid. You have to make sure they're still in the country legally, etc. You got to make sure you're paying attention to the paperwork, because we had a few in the last month that the paperwork specifically stated that, this document does not mean anything as far as your status in the country. You have to wait for your actual document that shows that you're here legally. So you got to be really pay attention. Your responsibility as an FFL is to ensure that whatever documentation, whatever information they're presenting is valid. In other words, is the dates are correct, etc., and that the information provided is accurate and correct.
Yeah, yeah, and one way to remember it also, non-immigrant visa is someone coming here for a specific reason for a specific amount of time typically, and they obtain those visas in their own native country from the State Department before they ever come over, an embassy or
Correct.
consulate.
Yeah.
Yeah, they come for 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, I think is the
Right.
longest, which would be a student or work visa. And those
Yeah,
folks,
otherwise you have to renew. Yep.
yeah. So when you're talking to your customer and you're understanding they're not a native, they're not a citizen, kind of have that conversation. Why are you here? How'd you come in? What do you know, what's your purpose? If they're here indefinitely, it's typically not a visa situation. It's typically one of the other line 20 items that allows them to be here. All right. I know you answered some of these on the chat room, JC, but I think some people may not be seeing the answers.
Yeah, that's fine.
How crucial is it to have the name on the 4473 match the name in the A&D book, referring to nicknames in particular? The person's name is Robert, Michael, etc., and maybe they listed as Bob or Mike in the A&D book.
Yeah, the key here is this is real simple. The ATF during a firearms compliance inspection is going to cross-reference 4473 to A&D record, and you need to make sure that the two match. Back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, the form 4473 literally used to say, this person is known to me. So you didn't have to accept an identification. But now those rules are changed. So you need to make sure that whatever's on the 4473 matches their identification, and whatever you put as the disposition information matches the 4473 and their ID. You need to make sure that everything coincides. That's the key.
And guys, we still get a lot of questions on this whole middle name thing, middle initial versus full, middle legal name. It's middle name. A full legal name is a legal name.
Yep.
That's
Their
all.
full legal name. That's what's required.
And the reason is John L. Smith. When they do a background on John L. Smith, it's going to be a lot less specific than John Lawrence Smith when they run that background check. They want it to be as specific as possible to get the right answer on that person out of the NICS system, so to speak. All right.
Yep.
Hey, David asks, how are FFLs expected to detect someone who meets the conditions of conspiring?
Well, that's all part of qualifying intent, right? Qualifying intent, qualifying, the transaction. You need to make sure you're interacting and engaging with the customer to understand, and make sure, even in your gut, if it's a gut feeling, that transaction feels right to you. If they are, expressing any of those common behaviors of somebody who's doing a straw purchase, or, even in situations where they're buying 7 high points or 7 Glock 19s or 40 lowers, you need to look at that situation and say, what do you need 40 lowers for? Why are you coming through me to get those, right? Qualifying interest, qualifying intent, make sure that you're asking the right questions. What are you doing? It's real simple, and then obviously picking up the phone and calling us when you have that weird situation to say, hey, JB, JC, I got a weird one. I'm not really sure what direction to go. We'll point you in the right direction. Well, we'll tell you, don't make that transaction. Let's reach out to local ATF. Let's talk about it. Let's see if there's something here that we need to be aware of, that you as the FFL need to be aware of to make sure you're conducting lawful commerce in firearms. So it's all about qualifying interest, qualifying intent. Check your gut feeling. If it doesn't seem right, doesn't feel right, then chances are it probably isn't.
Yeah. I'm going to twist this question a little bit, JC, because it applies to many states more than just what Marsh is asking. So,
Sure.
yeah. So how does in this case, how does a California dealer rectifying, I don't know if that's the right word, rectifying the California law that does not allow dealers to deny private party transfers? Can we cite federal law and state that we believe they are private partying in order to make a profit and then deny them? And I want to say, you're trying not to have a lot of private party transfers and not to waste your time on it. But
Yeah.
and her last part says, does federal law trump state law? Don't want to get in trouble with California DOJ or ATF.
Here's the key with California law. And it doesn't matter if it's California or any other state.
Yeah, there are other states with the
Right.
same requirements.
Right. If the state has enacted a law, regulation, code, whatever they call it in that state or that locale, if they've enacted something that's more stringent, more restrictive than federal law, then state law must be followed. Okay. So if California or Colorado or who else just did, somebody else just came up with a law where private party transfers,
Illinois, right?
Illinois, New York State, I think did too,
Yeah.
where private party transfers must be transacted through a federal firearms licensee, and that is the requirement. And a lot of times when they enact those laws, they specifically state in that law that an FFL cannot turn down a private party transfer. Now, in certain instances, I think in Colorado it's the case, and correct me, JB, if I'm wrong, but in certain instances, in certain states where they've enacted these laws, if they didn't put a provision in the law, the state or restrict the FFL from charging a certain amount, that's how the FFL has basically kind of gotten around the law saying, okay, fine. If I'm required to do FFL to FFL transfers, I'll do them. But if I'm not required to charge a certain amount, I can charge whatever I want, then I'm going to charge an extraordinary amount so I can avoid it completely. Now, look, me personally, I want to get, if I'm selling a gun to somebody, I want to get that gun off of me. So transacting it through an FFL is great in the sense that it gets the gun off of me and puts it on somebody else. And I transacted it legally. They went through a background check. So nothing ever comes back at me. I also want you as an FFL to look at it from a sales perspective. You execute that transaction between two private parties, you have an opportunity to create a scenario where you make that individual a customer for life. They may be buying gun X, have no training. You offer training, may not have a CCW. You offer concealed carry permit training, may not have ammo, may not have a holster, a sticky holster. They may not have a cleaning brush. They may not have any of the accessories. So it's an opportunity to you to add on sales or maybe drive membership, maybe get them in the range, get them into a training, whatever the case may be. So there's opportunity. So don't be short-sighted on this because there is a big opportunity with it.
Yeah, and if you look at the big picture of what it'd be the state or federal governments are trying to do, they're trying to take bad guns off the street and out of the hands of bad guys. So they're imposing these laws, maybe not to make your life miserable, yes, to drive traffic into the store, to legalize it and create the trace. Remember they're creating the trace program so that they can get it back to the person who's supposed to have the gun, etc. But they're taking guns, they want to take it off the street and so that they can prosecute criminals who are doing this down the road. Slowly but surely, I am sure more states will go this route, if not federally. Universal background checks. We hear about it all the time. I would not be surprised if this becomes commonplace. And in some states, to JC's point, I think Colorado 1650 max, but you have to do it for everybody. It's their way of controlling gun sales off the streets. And in other states, yeah, they are charging $85 if you want to do it. So
yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, don't try to skirt the system here. You will get caught, and the ATF will find out, or whatever your state agency will find out, and then you're in bigger trouble. All right. JC, somebody's asking for the perjury statement. I think we could put that out on our resource link out at our
Yeah.
bonus button. We'll do that today or tomorrow for you. Whoever's,
Yep.
I think Mike is asking for that. All right. Next question. Do you offer your slides in PDF printable version? Yes. Actually, Denise, O'Donna rather, I will send these out. Make a special request. Actually, here's what we'll do. In the link out on YouTube, we'll send you the YouTube link. In the description will be a link to our PDF file. And we also do put those out on our bonus link. So every month we put those PDF copies of these slides out on the bonus link on the website. So click in there and you should be able to find it. Will FFL consultants be presenting a seminar at SHOT?
Yes, we will. I think we have 3 sessions at SHOT. So stay tuned for that. We'll get information out on those sessions once we get everything finalized, but we will be presenting at SHOT.
Yeah, we may or may not be presenting as FFL consultants. There's a contractual thing there. We might be presenting as NSSF consultants, which we do for them anyway. So it just might be a terminology thing.
Yeah.
All right. Do you guys do you have a perjury statement? Yes, we'll get that out to you. Can you clarify again the living in city limits question again? Is it for everyone who fills out the 4473? Or did I hear it right that just for military persons? The answer is it is for everyone, but the instructions in the form are misleading because the instructions in the 4473 only talk to if you're a military person how to complete that box, which is again uncanny, not thought out, from the perspective of an FFL. But the ATF failed to put any more instructions on there. It is for every person filling out the form. Again, there's 36 boxes on the 4473. Everyone has to have an answer in it. So it is for everyone. Well, we almost got caught that one. Glad you didn't. Does the address of a concealed permit have to match the address on the driver's license under 4473 to be valid for use?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Here's what I would tell you. Now you do have to look at state law and verify that there's no nuances within state law that requires an individual to update their, concealed carry permit to their most current address, in the event they move. But as it relates to the exemption, if you're in a state that is exempt from doing a background check, if the individual carries an LTC license to carry or concealed carry permit, it does not have any effect on that whatsoever. The key here is the issue date and the expiration date have to fall in within 5 years. Okay, that is the requirement per NICS, per the exemption. It must be within a 5-year term. So make sure that you check that issuance date and that expiration date to make sure it falls within 5 years.
Yeah, the other cool thing about a CCW or LTC or whatever you call it where you are, they're good for ID in any state.
Yep.
But they're just not good for the exemption in any other state other than their own where they're issued, as JC just explained. But they could be
And
used
in certain circumstances, they could be used as the primary identification. In the state of Texas, they fulfill all of the requirements within the state of Texas as it relates to photograph, birth date, name, full name, address, etc. You just have to make sure, because in the state of Texas, I believe they issue them for certain individuals up to like 10 years or something. So you want to make sure that they are that 5-year window. That is the requirement.
Yep. All right. Does anyone know if California government ever put into effect a law which would allow the victim of a gun crime to sue the seller and manufacturer of the firearm? California would even pay the legal costs, etc. So this law, unfortunately, is passed in California. I believe it's also passed in New York. I want to say it's part of the Washington state law as well. But this has not been tested yet. There have not been any lawsuits or prosecutions where it would be a lawsuit, really, I think, or civil crime, where a person can sue the manufacturer for selling a gun to somebody who actually committed a crime with it or caused injury or death to somebody's family. So I don't think we have case law or precedent on this yet, but we'll keep watching it. And you can probably just try Googling it and see if there's something we don't know about yet. With the new Colorado law, October 1st, if we were, Terry, good question here. If we run a next check in another state, will they give the 3-day delay on the next comeback proceed, but still need to delay the 3 business days if we're not in Colorado or selling to a Colorado resident?
Yeah, if you're selling to an out-of-state resident, that's a Colorado resident, to a firearm, then yes, you absolutely have to abide by the 3-day wait. There's no provision in the law that exempts the 3-day wait from out-of-state FFLs. So no matter what, the 3-day wait applies.
And that applies, well, the general rule is federal, you have to abide by your state law and the state law in which that other person resides. So you have to know both, hence our restricted states guide we try to keep updated for you. But there are some
Yep.
nuances. So, if you're curious, we have Terry, Terry and Zach, you guys know who I am. You call me 3 times a week with people from out of state because some of those laws are ambiguous and there's some fine tuning, and maybe there's a town or a county in a state that has a special rule, etc. So if you're not sure if it's one of those states on the list, feel free to give us a ring. We'll try to make that easier for you as well. It's a tough process selling to out of state. Do you know what's going on with Michigan with inspections? Well, we had our list up, and I'll tell you, Michigan did not show up as either high on inspections or high on revocations. That's what I'll tell you. If you need more information, let us know. We can probably show you some monthly statistics. If you got a specific question, give us a ring, but they're not high on the list. But JC, you've been up there for a couple of hearings recently, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have indeed. So,
all right. Here's William. Thanks for asking this. We haven't gotten this question in a while, but it's a great question for everyone. What is the exact requirement of the ATF on conducting inventories? Timeframes.
say that again.
What is the exact requirement from the ATF to conduct inventories?
There is no requirement per se
Right.
to conduct inventories or how frequently to conduct inventories or any of that. The key here is that you have a responsibility as an FFL to know your inventory, to know when and if something goes missing, and to know whether or not you've transacted firearms properly. And if they come in and do an inspection and they find missing firearms, well, that's influencing public safety negatively. So, there's no time limit. The best practice is quarterly. Now, some FFLs, depending on their size, we may say, semi-annually is fine, but do monthly counts of firearms to make sure you're accounting for all of your firearms. Remember, it's all about public safety.
Yeah. Bob says, I'm getting ready to transfer a lot of guns, long guns and handguns to a major dealer. Am I still required to fill out a multiple handgun sales form? No. No, when you're doing FFL to FFL transfers, you are not required to do any of the handgun or long gun.
That's an FFL to FFL transfer. There's no other paperwork required. Right. On FFL to FFL transfers, we got a number of calls when this whole engaged in the business thing came out. FFL to FFL transfers are just that. There's no 4473 required. There's none of that stuff. So I don't know where all that confusion came from, but just know that that's not the case.
Somebody else's YouTube channel, I think. All right. Do you recommend digital systems for bound book and 4473, like fastbound, etc.?
We recommend several. Fastbound is obviously one of them. Definitely reach out to us and we can get you the list of the ones. It really depends on you and your business type and how you engage in business, etc. Some FFLs just need the basics of an EA&D and an E4473. Some just need an EA&D, and some need the entire suite of products. So we have a handful that we actually, recommend because we've seen them, we've worked with them, we've interacted with them. So reach out to us. We'll be glad to give you that list of what solution providers are out there and the ones that we like the most. Now, always understand that, you do as an end user have to adapt a little bit to the solution. So, and that's the number one complaint that we get. Well, the system doesn't work the way I do. Well, it's a software application, and it's a global software application. So you have to be a little bit flexible.
Yeah. The other thing is none of the software, none of them are perfect.
Yeah.
And it's a pain in the butt just to convert from paper to electronic. It's a lot of work, but we get you there. We help you get there, and your vendors help you get there too. But it is a lot of work. You have to do a lot of, get a lot of things in place before you push that button. But I also had somebody just recently go from digital back to paper because his business is changing. He is not, he's pulling back based on all the zero tolerance stuff for a while. So he's actually moving from electronic back to paper, just to eliminate the cost. So there's lots of questions to be asked. We give you a whole long list of questions to consider when moving to electronic. All right. Can an 18-year-old work in a firearm retail and be able to receive and log in firearms?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. An 18-year-old can work in a gun store, does not require any parent or guardian permission to do so. You obviously want to make sure that they are not restricted as a prohibited person from possessing a firearm or, engaging in firearm transactions.
Yeah. People think it's weird that an 18-year-old can sell and handle handguns, but they can on a licensed premises. As long as they're a W-2 employee, they have to be a W-2 bona fide employee. They can't be somebody's kid. So, somebody, there's some technicalities there, but somebody helping out, etc. Give us a call. We'll walk you through that. I'll send you our instructional guide. And you can even have somebody 16 years old working in your firearm store as long as they have a parental letter of authorization and permission. So, and there's some other issues there, but yeah, 16 and up can work in a gun store, handle guns and ammunition as long as they're not prohibited. Bob says, what's the best source for checking the legality of a firearm transfer to resident of another state?
State laws and published ordinances as provided by the ATF, or go out on that state specific code or
Statute, right?
constitution or statute or penal code or whatever, or reach out to us directly. We can probably help you in the vast majority. The challenge and the nuances of state laws and published ordinances is real simple. It depends on the state's constitution or the locality's provisions, because what happens in a number of states is a law may not go into effect until after the state legislature has adjourned, or it may not, based on the constitution of that state, it may not take effect for a year. There's just so many different nuances. That's why it's so challenging and difficult for everybody to keep up with it, including the ATF. So we stay boots on the ground, embedded in all this different information to help you the best we can. Things change rather quickly. In some states, it's immediate. So reach out to us with your questions. Otherwise, it may require you to do a little bit of research and reading.
Yeah. It's a pain in the butt, Bob. That's why we created the restricted states guide. It's out on our website, but it was, unfortunately, it's only updated through July. We have to get it updated and pushed back out to you guys. It kind of gives you the heads up onto which states have issues versus the others that are fine to transfer to. So hopefully we get that out to you soon, or go look for it on a bonus button on our website. Steve says, I have a business owner friend who wants to give a shotgun to an employee as a bonus. Is that permitted? Yes.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, Steve, as long as your friend who is buying the gun from you today, answers the questions correctly, that person, your friend, can leave tomorrow and decide to give that gun as a bona fide gift to an employee or anybody else, but he cannot receive remuneration for it, cannot be doing it as a favor. The person must not be prohibited. Monies can't be owed, no other compensation can be received, etc. So there's not really a whole lot of issue there, as long as it's a bona fide gift, and the ATF is very clear on that, and we know that happens. And as long as your friend is buying it today for himself with intention of giving it someday as a gift, everything's good. Okay. One thing, if he wants to cover his butt and you want to cover your butt, have the employee come in eventually, maybe to give a certificate or a congratulations card or a certificate of some type to the employee that says, hey, just go to Steve's gun shop. The shotgun's waiting for you. Just go do your background check.
Yeah.
You know, so
I mean, they still have to fill out a 4473 in a background check. The financial aspect of that transaction is a little different story.
yeah, ATF does not ask for, that's why the ATF doesn't have anything in the Gun Control Act about receipts and sales receipts and keeping all track of all who paid for what. It's all about qualifying the sale at the point of the 4473. Right. Cody says if a customer purchases a collection through a private party transaction done in the store, then turns around and puts them on consignment through the dealer, does that eliminate them doing it for profit since they're paying a consignment fee to us, the dealer, as a middleman? That's okay. Customer purchases a collection through a private party transfer, and then he basically puts them on consignment. That's interesting.
That is interesting. I would say no, in the sense that you're going through a dealer. That alleviates the actual transactional aspect of it. Yeah, you're profiting, but you're profiting in a way that you're doing it through a licensed dealer. So I wouldn't be too overly concerned about that.
Yeah.
I don't know, JB, what's your take?
Yeah, I read through the ruling a couple weeks ago when it came out, this proposed ruling 2022 R17, I think it is. It talks to engaged in the business of, and it basically it all talks around without a background check, again, the Safer Communities Act. And in this case, it also talks about repetitive activities. So if this guy's buying a collection, does a consignment sale, 20 guns, 50 guns, whatever it might be, that's a one-time event. And now if he's doing it, 5 times a year, then you might call us back.
Yeah.
Keep them coming. RC says if a customer brings in a handgun to send back to the manufacturer for repair, is it necessary to log in the weapon in our bound book if the handgun ships out the same day?
Yes.
And it is my understanding that firearms only need to be entered in our bound book if the gun is on premises overnight.
No. If you are transferring that firearm to another FFL for repair, warranty work, whatever the case may be, it needs to be logged in as an acquisition, logged out as a disposition to whoever you're sending it to. And then when you reacquire it properly from whoever sent it back to you, and then dispose of it properly to the individual. What you're confusing here is if you take in a firearm from an individual and you make whatever small repair, minor repair, whatever to that firearm and hand it back to the individual that owns it in the same day, you do not have to do all of the acquisition and disposition. Now, is it a good idea to do so? Absolutely. To keep record of that firearm and understand, to allow the ATF to see that, hey, I brought in a firearm, I repaired it, and I disposed of it back to the proper individual. It's chain of custody. Don't get that confused with you taking in a firearm to ship off to another FFL, because that is a whole different scenario.
Yeah. Any FFL transfer, FFL transfer, it has to be logged, period. Yep. Okay. And the other thing is, it supports the traceability of the firearm. And then the last thing, if it gets lost or stolen, obviously, in shipment. And then the last piece is that firearm may get shipped back from the manufacturer who repaired it directly to the customer. That's permissible. So sometimes we get that question.
Yep.
If the manufacturer repair center repairs it, they can return it directly to the same person from who they basically received it from as a repair. So if you got questions on that, give us a call. But you'll probably get that back from the manufacturer. Here's a good one. Can you explain it? Is there any new requirements in doing FFL to FFL transfers? I think that's getting confused again with that engaging a business issue.
FFL to FFL transfers, you're both licensed parties. There are no changes as it relates to that. You have already stipulated you're engaged in the business. You have secured a federal firearms licensee or a license to conduct lawful commerce in firearms. That has not changed. You're still an FFL. And there's been some confusion. I guess the big box players, I know in years past when firearms were a little bit more affordable, and sometimes the big boxes offered great deals on firearms, and you as an FFL couldn't get that great of a deal through your distributor, even at retail price. Understand something. I spoke to all the big boxes last week, all the leaders. They're still doing FFL to FFL transfers. None of that has changed. If you've spoken to somebody at the store level, they may not be aware of the rules and regulations, asked to speak to a manager. They by all means still conduct FFL to FFL transfers. So don't get that confused with the engaged in a business proposed rule. It's still proposed. It hasn't gone into effect yet. Don't get that confused.
And the last thing on this FFL transfer, again, reading through this new ruling, it does hit a lot of language about making sure you get a certified copy of the 4473 for that person you're sending that firearm to. I know a lot of us have fallen away from that strict discipline, but before you send a gun to a gun dealer, you're supposed to go ahead and make sure they're a gun dealer, get that email, a fax copy, a PDF copy, save it someplace. They can be asking for those down the road, and we don't want you getting snagged, even if you're using FFL the FFL lookup system. What's that called, JC?
FFL Easy Check.
FFL Easy Check, right? Yep. Out of brain blurb there. Yeah, so if you're using FFL Easy Check, continue to get those copies and keep them someplace on file. RC says, when we do a firearm transfer for a customer who purchased the gun from an online reseller, should we keep the seller's FFL and invoice hard copies in the buddy file along with his ID copy?
Yeah, you can certainly keep them in your, commercial records in the buddy file. By all means, what you want to make sure of is number one, you want to verify that FFL against Easy Check, make sure everything matches up. And then secondly, make sure whoever you're transferring that firearm to, their name is on that invoice. Whoever that firearm was sold to is who that transfer needs to occur to. So if it was Bob Jones and Joey Jones comes walking in the door, you can't transfer that firearm. It has to be Bob Jones.
Right. Otherwise, you got a straw purchase.
Exactly.
Here we go. I just started to use Enix instead of calling in. Well, congratulations. But it went to delay last Friday. I checked it today and I do not understand how to read it. Can you go through one, please? Yeah. So real simple on your Enix screen, you're going to have a submitted date, which is the date you submitted it. Well, I guess you didn't call it in, so you typed it in. There's a created, I'm sorry, it's called created date.
Yep.
And then the next is going to be a status up. There's got a status date.
Yep.
And there's a disposition date and there's a Brady date, right? I think.
Yep.
Well, the disposition date or status date is the date that the ATF decided what to, or the FBI decided what to do for that customer. The retrieved date, I believe, JC, is that when our FFL retrieved it?
Yep.
Yep. And then the Brady date is the last date you can transfer that firearm without it's a Brady date expiration. Is the date if you get a delay, the date on which you can transfer that gun if it's a delay. And that Brady date never includes weekends or holidays. And I think there's an expiration date when, I'm not sure, does it have the 30-date expiration in that view?
Yes, it does. Yep.
Yep. So all those different dates, if you do need more help on that, hey, just give us a call. We'll walk through with you and tell you exactly what each one of those means. Thanks for that question. It's a good one.
Yep.
All right. Bob says, as a gunsmith, how do they look at us rebarreling a rifle?
Rebarreling a rifle is gunsmithing. The barrel and such. You're not changing the configuration of the firearm in any way. You're just putting a new barrel on. So that is gunsmithing. You're repairing a firearm.
JC, how about if I'll add on to that. How about if I'm changing the caliber of the barrel and upper receiver?
Then there's a question about the fact that, okay, we're changing out some classification of that firearm, and then we have to be concerned about whether or not you're manufacturing.
Yeah. All right. Hey, Don, thanks for this question. Don says, hey, so hold the phone. If they can go back as far as they want to, say we told you so, and then cite us for a willful infraction for a repeat violation, doesn't that really mean anyone who has ever had a warning status is always in warning status? Does the slate ever get cleaned? Great question, Don.
Nope.
And we used to think, correct me if I'm wrong, JC, ATF folks we also work with, retired ATF folks who actually wrote the rule books.
Yeah.
They used to tell us, well, if somebody gets through 2 or 3 clean inspections, after a warning, they're good to go. And that was 10 years ago.
Yep.
And we kind of ran with that, and it kind of worked out that way. But nowadays, the ATF's pulling the cat out of the hat. They're looking back to your permanent record, which is on file, obviously, in the computer for everything that ever happened with you since you were issued your license. So unfortunately, Don,
Yep.
the answer is be compliant and get through your next inspection with flying colors.
And I'm going through this with an FFL right now who's had a couple of very clean 100% no violation inspections. And unfortunately, this most recent inspection, they had one of the deadly sins happen. And, you look at the government's argument. The government's argument is, hey, look, back in 2004, this FFL was told X, Y, and Z. Well, our argument is they've made significant improvements. So in those situations, there's an argument to be made. Now, whether or not ATF is going to be receptive of that is a different story. But the fact of the matter is if you've had a warning conference, if you've not even administrative action, if you've had a report of violations in the past year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and something comes up that's a repeat violation, it can be held against you.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, we had a couple of IOIs last week tell our FFLs, don't worry, they're kind of like sounding like good guys. Oh, I'm not going to cite you for that, or don't worry about that. So, I mean, we can't tell you what's going on today, except you have to know all the details because we want to give you the worst case scenario so you don't get blindsided, right? Hey, thank you, my friend from New York here. I'm going to see you in a couple of weeks. So she says, so far, New York, so far, 5 transactions, 5 FFLs transferred. FFL license delayed 15, the licensee delayed 15 plus hours on the submittal. One got lost with no record on the New York State NICS website, totally lost. Phone call and email, no response. Plenty of delays. Today was the first immediate proceed response. So thank you. We appreciate that feedback for all of you New Yorkers. Hopefully things improve over the next couple of weeks as they work out the kinks. But I'm looking forward to my trip up there. See you soon. Next one, Quiwan. Hope that got your name right. If a customer has to show supplementary government issued documentation in line 26B, can they just show a picture of it on the phone, or does it need to be the original document?
Now, electronics is fine as long as you can verify it comes from a legitimate government entity.
Yeah, most state motor vehicle departments or state agency or states, Colorado has it. You can have a driver's license on your state website or your state app, or you can have just a state ID, or you can have your carrier permit on that state app as well.
Yeah, so, the rule of thumb is as long as it's been government issued and it's recognized by the government.
Right. RC, another great question. How should we file paperwork for customers that bring in their firearms to be sent back to the manufacturer for repair? Since no 4473 or background check is required in this scenario, as long as the same person picks them up.
The key to this is to create invoices or work orders or repair tickets or something like that with their information, and keep that for your commercial records in case in the event you have to provide proof. So you just want to keep a commercial record of that. You can keep it electronically. You don't even have to keep a hard copy. If your point of sale or your invoicing system, whatever you're using, maintains that electronically, that's perfect.
And I was in a store last week with a part-time gunsmith, and it's just a simple little work order book he's got from the office store.
Yep.
And of course, obviously, that information, those guns get logged into the gunsmith A&D book, but he does have the little memo pad to go along with it.
You need to make sure that you're detailed enough to actually illustrate what's going on with that gun.
Yeah.
Not too detailed, but detailed enough.
Yeah. Yeah, Sherry asks, if you use a driver's license and concealed handgun license to purchase a gun, do the addresses have to match? I think we answered that.
Yeah, we did. The basic rule here is where are they laying their head at night? Where's that gun going to be? That's the address that needs to match whatever identification you're using to verify their identity.
And if it doesn't match the photo ID, just list the other one on line 26B.
26B. Yep.
Can a person under 21 years old sell a handgun to a FFL in Mississippi, and are there limitations on what state this seller resided?
An FFL can buy a gun from anyone in any state at any time, even if it's on their premise. If somebody walks in and says, "Hey, I want to sell you my gun," by all means, you just take that gun in from that individual. If they're
Yeah,
under 21 and they sell you a handgun and they want it back, well, it sucks to suck.
yeah, yeah. So I talked to an ATF confidant on this one, and here's the bottom line on this: they just want the guns off the street. The ATF wants folks who aren't supposed to have guns, or maybe they are 18 years old and got a gun as a gift, or got it from grandpa, or found it in the attic when dad died, or something. Yeah, they certainly can walk in. They can't pawn a gun because they won't be able to get it back until they turn 21, but they certainly can sell a used gun to you at any age. There's no requirements unless your state has leads online or LEAP or someplace to vet those used gun purchases through a local law enforcement. You know. Dan says, I have a friend I grew up with. Oh, that's good. With what that wants to purchase a handgun. However, I know he got into some trouble in his teen years. I did a state of Kentucky criminal record check from the Kentucky Administrative Office and courts. It came back as no records found. How can I check to see if he has a federal record? This person is a state of Kentucky resident. So
That's not your responsibility as an FFL. If he wants to know whether or not he has the right to purchase a firearm, they need to go through those steps. Now, if he doesn't feel as if he is a prohibited person, he can most certainly go through the steps, complete the 4473, and go through a background check. But that's up to him to ensure that he's not prohibited.
yeah, and we tell her, we get this call every couple of weeks. It's not up to you as an FFL to play lawyer for the for the customer.
Right.
And they should know their history and how they cleared or got disposed of, or how they talked to the attorney or judge along the way. Maybe it's been expunged over the years. Who knows? But unless it was last week or last month or 3 years ago and made the front paper of the news, things can happen in a couple of years. Lawyers are involved, and people get things expunged and corrected and dismissed, and so. Again, it's the person. That's why all those warnings and certifications are critically important for your customers to read slowly. If they lie on a form, hello, can you say Hunter Biden? You will be charged as a felon and be prosecuted and processed through the system.
And keep in mind, we got a few of these in the last couple of weeks. Customers have walked in and said, well, I had a deferred sentence, adjudication withheld. I had to be nice for, a couple of years and not get in trouble, serve community service, etc. Even in situations where adjudication has been withheld and it was a deferred sentence, the individual still has to go through a process to get that removed from their record. So if somebody approaches you and says, I'm trying to answer this question properly, this is what happened, I had a deferred sentence, adjudication was withheld, tell them to stop. They need to go through the process to have their record cleared. They're going to get denied. It's almost a 100% certainty. So just understand that. Just because it was a deferred sentence, adjudication was withheld, it's more than likely 99.9% certainty it's still going to be on their record. So
yeah, there's a technical process for the records to be updated in a computer, which then at the state level, which then communicate to FBI. All right, Skip. Hey, Skip. We got to get out there and see you sometime soon. Has there been any update on the ATF rule change on changing braced pistols to SBRs? Still have not received any response to the submittal back when the paperwork had to be submitted.
So you submitted your Form 1 and you still haven't gotten your conditional approval? I would definitely be calling up NFA and saying, where is my conditional approval on this? I have yet to receive it. You should have received a conditional approval by now. You wouldn't have received your actual Form 1 back approved. You should have received a conditional approval.
Yeah.
So I would reach out to NFA on that and say, hey, some of them might have got lost in the mail, maybe. I don't know, but you definitely need to reach out to NFA on that.
It was sitting under a stack of paper in the corner too. Tell them JC told you to call.
Yeah.
Hey, Cash says, JC, I see on your, I guess I'll see on your checklist, it states that NFA items need to have their own safe for storage from regular inventory. I'm a small home-based business, 2 safes, even only 1 or 2 NFA silences. Can you explain?
It's a recommendation to keep your NFA inventory segregated. And by segregated, I mean this. I mean, what's in process, what's in current inventory, and being a home base is a little bit different situation. When we get into our bigger FFLs, the problem that we run into, even all the way up to the distributor level or wholesaler level, is the problem is when you're mixing what's in process versus what's inventory. Because what happens is somebody mistakenly processes a second Form 4 for a firearm that's already in process. So we tell you it's recommended to have your inventory segregated, what's in process, what's in inventory, etc., and keeping paperwork that's connected to that device with the device so you know where it's at. As a home-based FFL, I wouldn't tell you to have two safes for that. I would just tell you to be organized and have everything segregated in such a way that you could decipher what's in process between what's in inventory. So there's not a requirement for it. It's our recommendation.
Yeah, JC, quick question on NFA inventory as we're on it. Do I have separate NFA A&D books?
You can have a separate NFA A&D book. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Most of the providers out there provide some way, shape, or form of segregating inventory as to what it is. And others allow you to maintain several different books. So you just want to make sure that, whatever you're doing is consistent across the board.
Yeah. The trick is to stay organized, because when the ATF comes to count your inventory, they're going to bring the NFRTR, right, JC?
Yep. National Firearms Registration and Transfer Record. Yep.
So that's the inventory on record at the NFA branch as to what you should have in your place of business. Yep. So that they're going to count your NFA weapons separate from your GCA firearms.
Yep.
So that's primarily the ATF will tell you separate everything, inventory wise, book, NFA inventory. They're going to count that according to this list they have with them when they arrive, versus your gun control, your GCA non-regulated firearms that you're in your bound book as open acquisitions. They're going to take that list and count everything else.
Yep.
So it really simplifies the process for them. The last piece of it, I guess, 4473s, JC, we can combine NFA and non-NFA transfers all in the same file system.
NFA transfers that happen on a 4473. Once you've transferred that firearm, the 4473 associated with that transfer needs to be filed with all your other 4473s, chronological order, or whatever order you file them in, but it needs to be maintained with all your other 4473s.
Yep. Hey, John, say hello to Ryan out there. John's question is, are we allowed to use NICS background checks for employee pre-employment yet?
Yeah, the firearms handler form has not been approved yet. It's close. I would venture to guess. I think JB and I are taking a shot in the dark, saying probably sometime in January. We know it's there. We know that it's been completed. We know that all the feedback, all the interagency stuff has occurred. We're just waiting for the finalized version. So not yet. It's coming.
There's technical, let's just call it computer system issues that they haven't figured out yet.
Yep. Yeah, there's some nuances to it. So.
All right. Can you take a main form of ID and use it on the 4473 if it's expiring that day?
If the expiration date on an ID is today, for example, it is good until 11:59 p.m. tonight. So if you're accepting an ID and it expires on that day, it is good until 11:59 p.m. on that day.
Here's the problem. What happens if I get a delay, JC?
If you get a delay, you might want to tell the customer they need to go renew their ID, because it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I get this question every other week. They got a delay.
They get a delay. It's not on you. You know your license is expiring.
Right.
Go get a new license.
Yeah. Tell the customer when you're accepting that ID and they got a delay, tell them they're going to have to get that before they come back, because they always show up and they
if you're in a state where a wait period is required, then I wouldn't even initiate that transaction. I would just say, hey, listen, we have a mandatory wait period. Your license is going to be expired on the day that you come pick up this firearm. You need to go renew your license and come back to us when you get the proper documents.
Right. Dan just said I received my NSSF 4473 overlay today.
You know what, Dan, reach out to us. I'll talk to NSSF about it. They probably need to discontinue fulfilling orders on those until the new one comes out.
Yeah,
And I'll see what we can do about getting you an updated version once one is made available.
yeah, they're not ready yet. They won't be made. We're the guys who helped put that together, get it ready and approve it. So you'll be waiting a while. So use the old one for the old forms. You have a couple months left. Practice with it, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, and we'll try to get you a free one around the corner here.
Yeah.
Sheila says, we're also a New York FFL. I did 3 ammo background checks on Saturday. All came back as a proceed immediately. Very good. You must know somebody. Also, this morning I sent over several questions concerning ammo background checks via email. New York Knicks responded within an hour. Background check entry is time consuming and instructions are vague at best. I've heard of FFL state they had delays, but I have not experienced that yet. Thank you so much, Sheila, for your input and sharing this with us. And we'll go ahead and field those. If you other guys have questions, again, try to make those phone calls and send those. Sounds like email is getting answered, so that's good. That's good. Well, listen, guys, I think that is it. That was a fabulous 125 of you still on asking questions. You had a smart winners in the room. So if you got questions, give us a call. Thank you so much for hanging with us. We will be on mid-month next month. We don't have a date yet, but I'll send it out as soon as we know, just so you can put it on your calendar. Once we set that date, we usually stick to it. We haven't changed the date, I think, in 2 years. So just put it on your calendar and watch for our invites. We hopefully will have some other nice surprises for you between now and then. We have some things we've been, projects we've been working on and trying to get out to you guys. So with that, any other comments, JC?
Thanks for joining us, one and all. 123 participants here at the end. We had a total of, I think, 190 plus for today. So thanks for participating. Thanks for all the great questions. And thanks for carving some time out of your day to spend with us and get some feedback to your questions. Hopefully it was valuable to us. It's always valuable, when you all participate, and we thank you.
All right, guys. If you need us, please call us. Don't email us. We don't look at email until midnight. Call or text, and we'll get you answers fast. All right, everybody have a great rest of the month. Take care.
All right, y'all. Be well.